Welcome to VoiceBox After Hours.
Welcome back to VoiceBox After Hours, another episode of our podcast. I am joined with the lovely Debbie McLeod this week, who is one of our fantastic BSL interpreters. We're going to start by doing a quick audio description of ourselves because we are on video. We're also just doing solely audio. So any audience members who cannot see our beautiful faces can listen to our audio description. And you know what, Debs, this is your opportunity to hype yourself up if you want to. I mean, audio description is very subjective. So you can make yourself sound, as beautiful or grotesque as you wish. So please go ahead, start.
My name's Deborah McLeod. I'm a beautiful black woman.
Yay.
I am wearing a black jacket, a black t-shirt. I'm wearing a blue glasses and my hair is black and red.
Fantastic. I am Sophie. I am a female. I'm wearing a white top. I have dark black, well, I say dark brown with black hair. I'm also wearing glasses and aged between 30 and 40, and we'll leave that there. So let's start. Debbie, talk to me. What made you get into BSL to begin with?
My family members are deaf. I have cousins on both sides of my family, on my mum's side and my dad's side. And at first I wanted to be a dancer and then I wanted to be a midwife. So then I went over to America and I was at a church event and the pastor was praying for everybody. So he came to me, he was taking long and his wife was a bit anxious to why. And then he went to my hands and said, out of my hands, that many nations would come to know him. So that's how I started signing. So I've been going on since. And then when I came back to London, I sought out about courses. So I did level 1 at City Lit. I didn't get in at first. So then I thought maybe this wasn't for me to do. So then I applied again and then I got in. And so from there I did my level 1, level 2 did it independent. Level 3, I did it at Andrews School of BSL. And my pre-interpreting, I did it at Bristol. And then I went on they broke my signing down to absolutely nothing. And then I thought I wasn't ready to do the interpreter's course. So when I had to do an assessment and they said I did really well in the assessment, but by then I was too bruised with my hands. So I decided not to. And then I came to Hackney College where I was working and I did it there. And then I ended up doing it with Lynn and Linda Defoe.
How long have you been signing year-wise?
Qualified interpreter about 7 to 8 years.
Okay.
I started off as a CSW communication support worker and I worked in Oak Lodge School, mother and baby units, did voluntary, I did quite a lot actually.
Yeah.
Youth work. And I've done quite a lot. So since I used to do medical, but since I've qualified, I do a lot of medical conferences. I haven't done court. I have done mental health. So that's.
Is there any aspect of the kind of, because I can imagine medical work is heavy in terms of terminology, and obviously sign, especially in an era where we're developing so quickly. I mean, in terms of medication, technology is like jumping ahead. And of course, until 5 years ago, there probably wasn't a sign for the word COVID-19, coronavirus. I think that the BSL language has had to really catch up. Is there any aspect of medical care that you prefer working over others?
Why I like, I think I like all domains because I do performance interpreting as well. But with medical, I get to go down into theatre, and then so I'm the last person they see and the first person they see when they wake up. So it's about being there, just supporting them, and then I refresh it by doing certain different training with medical, because the jargon is a bit heavy, but with medical it's so vast. So at present, one of my clients is not too well, so I've been at Royal Marsden, doing a lot of it's not my aim to, because I did work with cancer patients and that, maybe because my brother had cancer. But I was just like, because my client passed, I thought, I'm not going to do that.
I was going to say, how hard is it to deliver? And I don't mean bad news in terms of death, because obviously you wouldn't necessarily be signing that to the family. That would, but in terms of having to give prognosis, is that a difficult thing to do to a client when you have to actually be the one? Because usually the doctor would deliver the news directly to the patient. But I suppose for you, as the middleman woman, how do you deal with that emotionally when that news technically comes from you, not from the doctor? You can't distance yourself from it, can you? You can't say, oh.
No, you can't. And you have to be, because basically you're just like, your face is just blank, because I had to deliver some news, had to deliver quite a lot of news actually. And then I did find myself getting vicarious trauma. That's just because I think it affected me after, like a few days after. So as I said, it's not my aim to go in. I never know when I'm doing an appointment what it is. So I'm just like, oh.
Yeah,
I just go in and I just so I just have to. My face is kind of blank, but I just have to. I can't cry. I can't do. I just have to hold it, and then when I come out, I just
deal with the trauma afterwards.
Interpreters, because it's a bit heavy. But then again, when you work with doctors and consultants and surgeons, they make you feel part of the team. So which is really good. So then I've got to, like recently, that's what I said, I had to learn a lot of prep for like cancer and like the chemo, and then I had to explain it and then had to re-explain it. So I did quite a lot of prep. I think the doctor was very impressed with he was like, oh, you remembered? Well, yeah, because I have to translate it and I have to make sure I have to modify it so that it's simple. And so that the patient understands.
And I think it's it's a really good point when I know that we obviously use you for a lot of corporate work, but I think it's a really, really good point, mainly to any clients or people that do hire interpreters who are listening, is that prep work is so important. I know that they get sick of me saying, have you got prep work? Have you got prep work? And that's because I think with BSL, with interpreting and translation, it's not as straightforward as having the word for cup in English and the word for cup in German with BSL, because the language is constantly evolving. It's almost as if you have to break it down as an understanding and a meaning versus just one word. And I think we pre-recorded this last week, and like just the word for VoiceBox and After Hours, of VoiceBox itself as a sign is literally your voice box, which doesn't indicate a company or a logo or a trademark. Whereas when we had to kind of really get into it, because originally I think it was like voice and then a box, and Debbie flagged to me and she was like, well, what's in the box? And I was like, nothing. Like, it's not a box of treats. And she was like, that's not how a deaf person would interpret it. They'd be like, a box of what? So I think it's like, especially with medical terminology, which is a lot more intricate, I kind of feel like BSL is so complicated that prep work is so crucial. The time it takes up to an event for people to go through a glossary and try and work out, and especially if you're working with a partner, you want to be using the same signs for the same thing. And I think a lot of it is open for interpretation. I shared a post on LinkedIn last week that the word for China, India, and black have dramatically changed because they were not very pleasant and what could be considered heavenly
appropriate
signs back in the day, and not even that long ago. But the word for China was this. For
But people still use that because one of my clients, she was
Sorry, and
actually
just for
using
any
that.
blind and just for any blind listeners, I'm actually signing like a slanted eyes with my fingers. That was the original sign for China, which I know that if I was discussing Asian people right now, I wouldn't do this, to kind of explain what I mean. And I think black was this, which indicated a wide nose. And I was horrified.
Or your face is dirty.
I mean, and it's not been that long and it's been changed. And then I thought, what if there's older deaf people who may not be, because we have this in the hearing community, that the older people do use language that is not really very welcomed. And it's not necessarily, it is considered racist, but I don't think it's always used in that term. The word coloured, for example, still used by people over the age of 70, completely unacceptable to anybody else, who don't think twice, because in their heyday, that was kind of a word that was used. And I think trying to eradicate certain words, it's almost if we have to wait for a generation to pass before the next generation sort of takes up. There won't be anyone who's my generation who would use the word coloured, South Africans except, removed from that, because we just would never use that word at all. But, the over 70s probably would use it and not think, and there's probably a lot worse words they could be using. And I think with BSL, it's the same. You've almost got to eradicate a racist sign to bring in the new acceptable sign. And I think it also goes as far as like the diversity and inclusion movement. Are there words for trans that are evolving? Is there now a sign for trans woman and trans man, because we no longer use the word transsexual, for example? So I kind of feel like the language is constantly evolving, that you've got to keep your finger on the pulse. I might hear a word, like I heard a word the other day, which is bop, B-O-P, which in my day, and I'm not even that old, kind of meant like a disco or to dance. And now it means someone who does adult sex work. They are a bop. It's now a noun, a naming word, a bop. So you would say, oh, I do OnlyFans, I'm a bop. And I had to go and Google it because I saw it on TikTok and I was like, what does that word even mean? Like, how are the younger generation using it? And it's got to be the same with sign. There's got to be a constant reevaluation of sign and words and terminology that you've constantly got to keep renewing your dictionary. Is it easy? Is it difficult? It just
depends on it just depends on the deaf person. That's what to be fair, because in London we have our signs. If you go to Liverpool or Scotland, then you have the regional sign. So it just depends. Like some of the older generation of deaf people, they started off with finger spelling. So I've met people that just finger spells like everything, and I'm like, and then you've got some that just so it just varies, and then the younger generation does do their thing. So at the end of the day, it depends who you're with at the time. You just adapt to theirs. If that's what they're doing, then we adapt it to the person that we're working with. These are the signs that they use, because I think there was a sign for parents, and then I think I do like mother, father, and my friend was doing this, and then she said, oh yeah, because sometimes it could be the same, could be two mums, two dads, but I didn't use that sign. I used my one, but the deaf professional was fine with either. We were co-working and they were fine
because of course now you can have two fathers, two mothers, and they are both considered parents, so it must be
boom.
I think so.
It does change, so I guess you just got to go with the times.
With kind of colloquialism. So if I said, Bob's your uncle, I mean, do you have to start with Bob's your uncle, or do you just kind of say, and there we go, kind of, do you know what I mean? I kind of feel, if I say...
I'm not sure people wouldn't say Bob's your uncle unless they lip read what you said and said, oh, did she say Bob and who's his uncle? Then I would just say it's a jargon. I mean, it's just like a figure of speech kind of thing.
There's a lot of, especially in British English, there's a lot. And that's not even including urban, black urban speak. There's a terminology for it, which is London something. There's a particular language that's used. But if I were to use the word, I'm trying to think of a word that might not mean the same at the north as it does in the south. But if you were to use, so bread roll is a really good example of this. So I would say roll. Some people say, I know Birmingham, I think they say cob. And then further up north, they'll say a barm cake. or what do the Yorkshire people say? Is it a heavy bottom or a flat bottom? Like, but there's different words for bread roll. Do you just take your own personal word for what you call a bread roll and sign it?
It depends what their bread roll looks like. If it's round, if it's straight, if it's like it just depends what it is.
Show me the sign for bread roll, then show me the sign for, say, hot dog bun. Are they different?
So I would do bread roll is like it depends if you've got a roll or it's a bread, it just depends on the shape. So if it's like the French stick and you're just like the cuts and then you're just so it just depends. It just depends what it is, and a hot dog. So they make it hot dog. And then so it just depends on the shape of the roll, and because when you go in the shop, they ask you, what do you want? Do you want the French stick? Do you want the long one? Do you want the short one? Do you want this? It just depends. Yeah.
What about flavours? If you consider like a packet of Skittles, and see, what's really strange is that in the hearing community, I always say, rightly or wrongly, I don't like the red flavour. Now, I know that red is not a flavour, and I don't know what flavour the red is. I'm going to assume strawberry, but I don't like the red flavour. The purple flavour, and this is a very common thing, I'll say, have you got any orange ones in a packet of fruit pastels or Smarties or Skittles? Have you got any orange ones? Or I know for a fact I don't like the green flavour. I think it might be lime, but I've never described it as a flavour. I've never said, oh, I really like the yellow ones. I'll just say, oh, the yellow ones are disgusting. Is that something that
they may just say, they may say the red, they may say, I like the red one. That's nice. Or the purple, I like that one.
Okay.
Packet. So, or they may just take out and then say, okay, these are mine, and then you can have those ones.
And what about facial expressions? Let's say that you are interpreting a conference, or I'm doing a book reading, for example, and I'm reading the first page of my book, and I use a facial expression. I'm reading out, and I say, Mo, I'm going to, just so the listeners know, Mo is in the background here. Mo is always in the background of everything we do. But let's say I'm reading a book and I say, Mo purses his lips, or Mo knits his eyebrows together. Now, do you sign that as in Mo looks confused, or is there a sign for kind of knits? I mean, I've had Botox. I can't knit my eyebrows together at all. But if you were to knit, I can't even.
So is it just, so it's description, it's descriptive, sorry. So it'd be like Mo, it just depends on the contents.
Which is why the content, material is so important. Yeah, okay.
Yes, is he frowning? Is his eyes down? What's his facial expression? So you become that person. Like, oh, Mo is like suspicious, or he's seen something, he's not sure. Exactly.
Now, what's really interesting is how much your facial expressions change when you sign. Okay, massively. And I've seen lots of different sign. I've seen people who are sign language interpreters who mouth the words as they do it. I've seen sign language interpreters who don't mouth the words as they do it. I've seen sign language interpreters who make sound whilst they're doing it, because maybe the person they're signing for, I don't know, might be able to hear a little bit or not at all, or maybe they work on set, I don't know. But as someone who has a frozen face by choice, how important is it that you can move your facial recognition? Because the faces that you were just pulling, and just again, for any blind listeners that we have, Debbie was really scrunching her face up in kind of confusion or anger, or like, I mean, I'm due Botox, so I can move a little bit, but I couldn't produce those facial expressions like you're producing. So how important is your facial
BSL, that's how BSL is. Yeah, BSO is gestures, body language.
Mm-hmm.
It's just everything all in one. So it depends on what you're translating, you become that person. So say like you're doing performance interpreting, and you've got different characters in a play, you become that person, but then you change your body shape to match a particular character.
So if you did pantomime, you could be the villain versus the princess. You would be two entirely.
Yeah, so that just means I may change my position. I may just say, well, if I'm the villain, then I will kind of hunch my back or be more assertive. It just depends. But we would give a sign for each character. and then either lean forward if I'm this particular person, or remember that, oh, I'm her, so I'll turn to the left. Or if her hair's curly, then you'd know that the curly is the main person.
Have you done pantomime? I know that you do a lot of theatre. Have you done pantomime in particular? Because it's very...
Yeah, I did Beauty and the Beast.
So how, if you were the villain,
As
let's say that you were the baddie, let's say you were the Beast before he becomes nice. How do you, because I know that with pantomime it's very audience-led as well, it's very interactive. How do you react when you sigh and everyone goes, boo, hiss? You know, do you just have to kind of keep...
I do the dreaming, I would just do the audience. I go, woo. So I would just, become the audience. So the audience, and they're just like, oh, boo.
And again, for blind,
and then go back into the character, and they'll be like, oh,
okay,
yeah, that's not nice. And then you become back the audience again, and that. So
you're very interactive. You have to play with the audience with it. You've got to be on your toes, haven't you? I just think I wouldn't. It's almost like when you've got a comedian who has to respond in a split second to a heckler. I don't think my mind would work quick enough to... I mean, when I argue with my boyfriend, it's different. I have the comebacks in a second. But I feel like if I was on stage being watched by hundreds of people, I'd probably falter and be a bit like, oh, I wasn't ready to... So it's really impressive how fast you've got to think.
Sometimes they don't go by script. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, that always off script at pantomime.
They go off script. I think what happened was they were reading, so it was a work in progress. So they were reading the script, and whereas I learnt it, and then the audience is like, but the interpreter learnt it, so I don't understand why you're reading. And the interpreter learnt it verbatim, and you're reading. It doesn't make no sense.
How does that happen when, and again in pantomime more often than not, I know that people forget lines or they're giggling away on stage. If someone forgets a line, but you are, of course, have memorized the script, how does that have a knock-on effect to you? Do you just kind of have to improvise with them at that time?
I have to improvise with them.
Right. So you don't stick to script, you stick to the actors.
No, yeah. If I've got it and I'm like, ooh, I would improvise with them, because
again, you've got to really think on your toes, haven't you? You've got to get that out.
Yeah.
Goodness. Well, the next question I want to move on to, of course. So just a bit of backstory. When we first began working with Debbie, I had the task of equipping Black Tech Fest with 10 people of colour for an interpreting event for Black Tech Fest, which is fantastic. It is, Black people in the technological movement, by Black people, for Black people, as many Black members of crew and cast as you can get. And it's a really, really great celebration of this. And the year before we were offered the job, they actually used white interpreters. And one of the segments was talking about slavery. And it was a very, very uncomfortable topic for white people to have to interpret. And a lot of them actually refused, and some of them left. So the year after, we were like, let's get this equipped with the right people, because, if anything calls for people of colour, surely it has to be a conference about Black people. I don't know why white people weren't originally used for it, but surely the time for people of colour to shine has got to be, an event like this. And we stumbled upon Debbie and a team of fantastic interpreters that we've worked with ever since. And it really opened my eyes as to the low number of people of colour, but more so women of colour. There are so few, and I'm not just talking about in the interpreting space, but in the media space where we work, there are very, very few women of colour, which for me is really forefront, because it's a bit different when there's people like me working in the background. It doesn't really matter. But when you're in front of an audience, having the people of colour where people can see is really crucial. It's crucial to teenage girls. It's crucial to younger than teenage girls. It's crucial for university girls who are of colour, who want to be making the next steps of their career. They need to see women in these positions. Have you ever come across, I guess, situations where A, you're probably not the best person for the job because you're a woman of colour, or B, you might have been overlooked for a job because you're a woman of colour? I mean, I know that you deal with a lot of individuals, and I don't know how it might be, rocking up to an appointment at the hospital and someone saying, don't want to work with you because you're Black. Do you kind of face any of these prejudices or problems in your kind of professional life?
I think, yeah, you do. I think it was a while ago I had that, where I did an appointment and they were like, oh, you're Black. Yeah, I'm black all day long, so it's fine. And then I can withdraw from the booking if they're not happy, or I can continue to stay, but then phone it through. But I guess they're more diplomatic, or they will just say, oh yeah, back in the day, I had a little black friend, or because I did have one client that he didn't do I think because his parents was racist. They didn't like black people. So then, when he saw me, he goes, oh yeah, back in the day, blacks and stuff. And then I think what happened is he saw, sadly he's passed now, but he saw a nurse, and he must have said, oh, sorry, I can't see, you're blocking the light because you're too black. So then I had to look and say, no, that's not, you can't. And then be like, oh, sorry. But then I think the nurse kind of noticed that something was wrong and was like, well, what did they say?
I was going to say, where do you sit there? Do you refuse to interpret that?
Well, I just had to say, because I had to say, oh, you're blocking the lights, so they can't really see. They can't really see, because I was mindful that if I did voice it, then when I left, I know they might have possibly treated that person really badly.
Yeah. Really diplomatic,
at the end of the day, they're vulnerable, and sometimes people can be real cold. But then I think they weren't really convinced. But I just kind of said, "Oh yeah, because you're blocking the light," kind of thing. And then they're like, "Oh, sorry." Yeah, that's
interesting
fine.
because I know with language interpretation. So when we're, let's say, I don't know, doing English to Spanish, I know that in certain circumstances you can't be diplomatic. You have to literally interpret everything that's being said. So examples of this are kind of police interviews, immigration interviews, court discussion. You can't be diplomatic. You have to literally say what's being said. I suppose it's a bit different when you're signing between doctor and patient, unless of course it's
I mean, you still sign verbatim. Yeah, you still sign verbatim, but for me, I just know, or I knew that by the time I left, then I don't think they would have treated this particular person right. Yeah. So that's a decision that I made from what I had seen. So I know that they wouldn't have treated this person correct. But then it's instilling in this particular person, because I already know they're racist. I already know this, but for some reason they like me. Yeah. But it's fine. So it'd just be like, that's not really.
After that event had finished, he would have maybe said, don't really like black people, but there was one nice one who worked at the hospital with me. You probably became the token black friend. I'm not racist, but I had
they were all right with me. They were all right with me, but I'm just mindful that, like, oh God, here we go. So, and then I see how they carry on with other people, and I'm like, oh yeah, but then I already know. And then I think there's a few that they said, oh yeah, they don't like white people, but they like black. I was like, you sure? Yeah. They don't like white people. They're white, but they don't like white people, but they do like black people. So it's like, oh, okay. But I guess you just go and because if I said, oh yeah, you're too black, you need to move out the way, it's just a whole load. It's just a whole load of it's just a big piece of drama. What did you say? And think it's just big. But they apologized anyway. But I just have to. Yeah, because if it depends what it is you'll say. Like someone said, like deaf dumb yesterday, and I was like, oh, it's just deaf because they're not dumb. They're just
I mean
deaf.
That goes back to the language being
outdated. They're like, oh yes, sorry, our country, it's yeah. But then I've had a client who's actually witnessed them say deaf dumb, and they took the initiative to say, I'm not dumb, just because I can't hear. I'm very good at English. I've got a good job. I've got a thing, and they were like, "Oh, sorry," and stuff like that. So they took the
back to terminology and language. Well, I'm trying to keep this less than 40 minutes because I think last time we were on for like almost 2 hours. So what I want to do is just to kind of finalize this. Debbie actually runs a charity within VoiceBox, we try to support 2 charities a year. And just because of the whole accessibility movement at the moment and the work that we're doing as a company, we have decided to support a deaf-based charity for half the year and then a blind-based charity for the other half of the year. And then what we're going to do is 1% of all sales of BSL and subtitles are going to be going to Debbie's charity. And for the other half of the year, when we start doing the blind charity, we're going to be doing the same thing for 1%, but for audio description and for services that we do for the blind, including Braille. So what I'd like you to do, Debs, if you don't mind, is maybe talk a little bit about the charity. I know that me and my MD, not together, are going out to Jamaica. It's just so random that this is, but in April we are going to Jamaica. My boss is going up about 10 days before I am. And when she flies back, I'm then going. Hasten to add that I booked it first. But of course she lives in America, so it's a bit of a lesser distance for her. And whilst we're out there, we're both going to take some time to go over and visit what you're doing out there. So I would really love for you to talk about that, talk about the mother and baby unit, and even cross on to the work that your husband does. But yeah, if you want to just go wild for the last couple of minutes and talk to us about the work and how it crosses over into the UK and Boys Without Dads, and let's hear it.
Yeah, so basically, I always like to give back. I use my skills and I give back, even voluntary. A month, I will give back and help voluntary to the deaf community. That's something that I do, whether it's not a parents' evening or something, I just kind of give back. So how it started is my husband set up a charity called Crown Boys Mentoring, and it helped young boys who had absent fathers, and it taught them how to respect their mom, learn about etiquette, just being a young boy, not getting into any gangs, and just how they treat their mom, how they budget, and each of them had a mentor. So, and they're doing very well now. Some of them are at uni and they're doing very well. 2 of the boys obviously lost their dad, so they just had a single mum. So it's just being there for the mum and supporting them. And yeah, so then we went to Jamaica because my cousin lives, my husband's family is from Jamaica, and then they had us a club that they do. So each time they go and they give back. So there was a deaf school, Jamaican Christian school for the deaf. So I went there, met them, and then every year we go down in October and we run different courses, we bring deaf people. We do like cyber security. They get all the toiletries. We do sexual health training. They actually did makeup training, like beauty, and then with the theatre art, like they had to learn how to do bruises and just different training that we do for them, so that because they can't, so that it gives them more of an opportunity, because they have to pay for everything, instead of like saying, oh well, they only can work in the supermarket or a hotel. No, you can actually be an air hostess if you wanted to. You could actually drive if you wanted to. You can actually be a beautician. You can actually be a journalist. It's just opening up doors of opportunity for them. And then in between that, we met the mother and baby unit, which at first the government gave them a really nice house, private location. So I thought initially that it was like older people, but it was as children as young as like 13, young mums through child trafficking, gang rape, and that. So we tend to take stuff down and do different workshops, and to give back. So for us, it's very rewarding. And because I'm a sign language interpreter, obviously the signing is different, but we did training as well. So I learned ASL before I went there, and then in between they were learning BSL. So it was it's just really nice, 50 young people. So start from the age of 3 up until 20. So so it's just my goal is to have an academy for those that have left school so that they can get into like different careers, and then also do a student exchange where they come over here, visit deaf schools, see colleges, visit the deaf community, and it's about giving back. Because we did that one year for Barbados. There was 20 young people, one was deaf, and then we met the deaf community in Barbados, so we did a student exchange. So it's just about giving them, the opportunity. And then last year they did creative writing, or the year before.
Amazing.
So we did online training, and that's when we was kind of realizing, some of the English that is not where we thought it would be. So, but then I think the school were like, they wondered if, how the children would grasp it. And they did really well, because then they wrote a letter to their younger selves, and then they had masks, which they made. So behind the mask, this is me with my mask, and behind the mask, who am I? And then they did a letter to their younger self. And I did it like years ago, like the airmail, like before we used to post letters on airmails, their pictures. So they wrote a letter to their younger self. There wasn't a dry eye in the place.
I bet. Well, it's a really exciting thing that you're doing. And obviously it's a really, really great cause. And we're excited about joining it. We are going to be writing some material around it, obviously based on suitcase space. I'm going to see what I can take out, in particular for mother and babies, but it might be that we can purchase some things once we're out there. But we're really looking forward to supporting it, and we're obviously going to be any links and stuff that you can get to us. We'll be more than happy to promote those. But I think going out there and giving a bit of a rundown when we get back will be really, really crucial. But we're really excited to support you, and it's a great thing to be a part of. It really is, and you're doing amazing work out there. So, we're excited to be a part of it, and that's it really. For everyone listening, if you've got any questions on the BSL space, if you are looking for BSL interpreters for your next event, please get in touch with us. Very likely you'll see mine and Debbie's face, or hear mine and Debbie's voice once again. We work a lot together in the industry, so please get in touch, ask us questions. Debbie's the bane of my life, but I do very much enjoy working with her, and it's only taken us about 6 attempts to record this, so that's brilliant. And this morning, Mohammed and I weren't even sure what's going to happen, because she was ringing us before it even happened, and I was like, my computer was upgrading, and I was like, Debbie's already ringing, and she lost on the internet again.
So was mine. Mine was upgrading as well, 10 minutes. I was like, but it worked. So
Get in touch, ask us the questions you need to ask them. It's constantly an evolving space. I'm always asking questions. And Debbie, absolute pleasure to work with you, pleasure to hear from you, and I really look forward to the next few years of working together.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you so much.